I was examining a forged signature at work when my 10-year-old daughter called, crying, "Daddy, the police are at our house." That morning, I'd been a respected fraud investigator with a perfect family. By sunset, I'd discovered my wife and mother-in-law had stolen millions using my identity, and I was their prime suspect. The evidence against me was overwhelming, planted by the two people I trusted most. But they'd made one mistake. They'd taught my daughter where they kept their secrets. My name is Robert Miller, and I spent 23 years as a forensic document examiner for insurance companies. Every case that crossed my desk taught me the same lesson. Fraudsters always get comfortable. They develop patterns. They make mistakes. I just never expected to use that knowledge to save my own life. I worked weekdays examining forged claims and spent weekends on my real passion, genealogy. Our Charleston house had a converted study where I'd digitize old photographs and trace family histories. My wife Jennifer called it boring. Her mother Barbara, who'd moved in with us 5 years ago after her husband died, was less polite about it. Barbara Roberts wasn't just any mother-in-law. She ran charity auctions, organized church fundraisers, knew every judge's wife in Charleston. When she moved in, our quiet life exploded into dinner parties I couldn't afford and social events that drained our savings. But I trusted them with our finances. I had my steady job, my weekend research, and my daughter Emma, who at 10 already loved hearing stories about her ancestors. The warning signs were there, subtle as watermarks on old paper. Jennifer had started handling all our mail, insisting it was easier since I worked long hours. Barbara had convinced me to add her as an authorized user on our credit cards for household emergencies. I'd noticed unfamiliar charges, but Jennifer always had explanations. Catering for charity events that would be reimbursed. Deposits for venues that would be returned. I documented everything in my personal files out of habit, never suspecting I was building the case that would save me. "You're too trusting, Robert," Jennifer would say whenever I agreed to another expense. "But that's why I love you." Last April, the Charleston Historical Society called with an emergency. Their basement had flooded, 150 years of records drowning in muddy water. They needed volunteers with preservation experience immediately. I packed my equipment while Jennifer watched from the doorway. "A whole week for wet papers? These are irreplaceable," I said. Barbara appeared behind her. "Always saving the past while the present passes you by." There was something in her tone that made me pause. I'd been noticing it more lately. A sharpness when I mentioned work. An impatience when I talked about documentation. She'd even suggested I stop bringing work files home, claiming they cluttered the study. Those 7 days blurred together. 18-hour shifts in a warehouse, carefully separating waterlogged pages. On the 6th night, my colleague Sarah mentioned something strange. "Your wife called yesterday, said it was urgent about banking. Seemed frustrated when I said you'd be back Sunday. Then she called again today, asking if you had any work documents with you. I tried calling home. No answer. When I returned Sunday afternoon, the house felt wrong before I even opened the door. The silence had weight. My study door stood open. I always locked it. Inside, my filing cabinets were askew, papers scattered as if someone had searched through them hurriedly and tried to clean up. The divorce papers were on the kitchen counter. A sticky note in Jennifer's handwriting. "Don't contact us." The joint accounts, empty. The investment portfolio, gone. The house, already in foreclosure proceedings. Even my retirement fund had been liquidated. 2 weeks later, during my first visitation with Emma at my apartment, we sat on the floor looking through photo albums. The few things I'd managed to keep. "Dad," Emma said suddenly, "why do you and Grandma have the same birthday?" "We don't, sweetheart. Mine's October 15th. But Grandma's special box has lots of driver's licenses with October 15th. I saw them once. Mom got really mad. My mouth went dry. Different licenses. Different pictures but your birthday. And names like yours but different. Robert Milton. She keeps them in her jewelry box, the one with the false bottom. She showed me once when she was drinking wine, said it was our secret game. That night, after dropping Emma off, I went to my office and accessed databases most people don't know exist. The advantages of working in fraud investigation. You know where bodies are buried, digitally speaking. Robert Milton, Robert M. Miller. All with my social security number. All with accounts opened in the last 5 years. All tracing back to properties Barbara owned through various LLCs. But the real shock came when I cross-referenced the account opening dates with my work calendar. Every single fraudulent account had been opened while I was at insurance fraud conferences. Documented absences that Barbara had encouraged me to attend. "Network more, Robert," she'd said. "It's good for your career." She'd been establishing my alibis while committing crimes in my name. I started with what I knew. Document examination. In my apartment, I'd kept copies of everything out of professional habit. Insurance papers, tax returns, even grocery receipts. I spread them across my living room floor, looking for anomalies. That's when I noticed it. Jennifer's signature had changed subtly over the years, becoming more like mine. Practiced signatures, I realized. She'd been learning to forge my handwriting. I spent 3 weeks investigating off the grid. No digital traces, just shoe leather and public records. The clerk of court, Mrs. Patterson, knew me from my genealogy work. "Property records for the Roberts family," she said. "Going back 15 years? What I found wasn't inheritance. It was money laundering. Properties sold between shell companies, values mysteriously increasing with each transaction. Tom, a retired colleague, met me at a bar on the north side. Elder fraud in Charleston society? Yeah, had 3 cases before I retired. Wealthy widows, sudden financial changes before death. Never could prove anything. Names: Adelaide Morrison, George Wilson, Patricia Hart, all members of Barbara's church. All had attended her charity events. All had died within 2 years of naming Barbara as a financial advisor or estate planning consultant, a title that required no certification in South Carolina. I found James Morrison at his mother's grave. The cemetery was empty except for a groundskeeper mowing in the distance. "Your mother knew my mother-in-law, Barbara Roberts," I said. His face darkened. "What about her?" "I think Barbara stole from your mother. And I can prove it." His mother had signed power of attorney 6 months before dying. The family fortune vanished into complex instruments they couldn't trace. But James had something I needed: his mother's appointment books. Adelaide Morrison had documented every meeting, every lunch, every interaction with Barbara in meticulous detail. She met with Barbara 43 times in her last 6 months, James said, showing me the leather-bound calendars. More than she saw me, her own son. The pattern was clear: love bombing, isolation from family, then financial control. Classic elder abuse tactics, but executed with Charleston society polish. Rebecca Wilson was next. I found her at her mother's favorite coffee shop, the one where Barbara had conducted her financial consultations. Rebecca had photographs. Her mother with Barbara at various events. Growing thinner, more confused looking over time. "Mother started giving things away," Rebecca said. "Jewelry, artwork." Said Barbara was helping her simplify. By the end, she didn't even remember she'd owned them. Then Marcus Hart, a retired attorney whose father had lost everything. I knew something was wrong, but Barbara had Dad convinced I was after his money. She turned him against me. Each had the same story. But I had what they didn't: the fraudulent identities, the paper trail, and Emma's testimony about the false bottom jewelry box. Through James's connections, we identified Barbara's next target, William Thomas, 83, widowed, worth $4 million, with only a distant nephew. Marcus set up a consulting firm specializing in estate protection. Within a week, Thomas had hired him. The plan was simple. Let Barbara approach Thomas, document everything, then spring the trap. I played my part perfectly. The broken ex-husband, drinking too much at local bars where Barbara's friends would see me, talking about how I'd lost everything. Meanwhile, Marcus had Thomas wearing a wire to every meeting with Barbara. The breakthrough came when Barbara suggested Thomas sign power of attorney for emergencies. The document, buried in subsections, would give her complete control. More importantly, it referenced accounts in my fraudulent identities, accounts she didn't know we were monitoring. We had her voice on tape, directing Thomas to transfer funds to Robert Milton's account for tax purposes. We had her fingerprints on the fraudulent documents. But I wanted more. I wanted her to admit it to me. I confronted Barbara at her rental house while Jennifer was out. She answered the door in her charity gala dress, diamonds glittering at her throat. Diamonds I now suspected had once belonged to Adelaide Morrison. I know about the identities, I said. I know about Morrison, Wilson, Hart. She actually laughed, pouring herself wine without offering me any. Who's going to believe a bitter ex-husband? Maybe the state attorney's elder justice unit that Marcus contacted. Maybe the 7 families you've stolen from. Maybe the forensic accountants tracking your Cayman accounts right now. Her composure cracked when I mentioned the Cayman accounts. The ones we'd flagged for investigation that morning. You're guessing, she said, but her hand trembled slightly. Account number 4-471-889-2134. Opened 3 years ago under Robert's family trust. Deposits matching the exact amounts stolen from the Morrison estate, minus your usual 15% handling fee. The wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. What do you want? Justice. But I'll settle for restitution. The meeting was Monday. Barbara's lawyer's office, a mahogany-paneled room that smelled of old money and older secrets. I laid out everything. Bank statements, forged signatures, the fraudulent identities, the money trails, security footage of Barbara at banks with victims, and the crown jewel, Thomas's recordings. Barbara's voice clear as crystal explaining how to hide assets from greedy relatives. This is circumstantial, her lawyer said weakly. It's enough for state investigation, Marcus said. We're talking decades in prison, elder abuse, identity theft, wire fraud crossing state lines. That brings federal charges too. I looked at Jennifer. She sat rigidly in her chair, designer bag clutched in her lap, a bag I now knew had been bought with Patricia Hart's money. Did you know? She couldn't meet my eyes. She said it was inheritance money, from accounts father had hidden. I studied her face, looking for the tells I'd missed for years, the slight twitch at her left eye. She was lying, but also the tears, genuine ones. She'd known something, but maybe not everything. You knew enough, I said quietly. You knew enough to leave me holding the bag. Barbara's mask finally slipped completely. You sanctimonious fool. Do you know what it's like to watch your husband's fortune disappear into bad investments? To go from somebody to nobody overnight? Those old fools had more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes. They had families. They had children who loved them. Children who couldn't wait for them to die. Like Jennifer was waiting for you? I asked. The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer's face went white as she understood. She'd been Barbara's exit strategy all along. Here's the deal, I said. Every penny returns to the victims. All fraudulent accounts close. You both leave Charleston and never contact me or Emma again. And if we refuse, this goes to the state attorney tomorrow morning." 3 hours later, they signed everything. The restitution agreements, the custody papers, the restraining orders. As Barbara signed the last page, she looked at me. "You were smarter than I thought." "No," I said. "I just finally started paying attention." The divorce finalized quickly. Barbara's rental sold, everything going to restitution. James Morrison recovered $2 million. The Wilsons, $1.5 million. The Harts, nearly $3 million. Other victims came forward once word spread. 12 families in total, spanning 3 states. The state attorney's office offered me a position as a consultant in their elder justice unit. I took it. The raise helped me get a better apartment with a real office and a bedroom for Emma. With Jennifer gone and unable to contest due to the circumstances, I got primary custody. The hardest part was explaining it to Emma. We sat in her new room, painted the pale blue she'd chosen. "Dad," Emma asked one night, "was Grandma a bad person?" "She made bad choices, but she taught me something important, that the most dangerous lies come from people we trust. Is that why you check my homework so carefully now?" I laughed. The first real laugh in months. "No, sweetheart. I check your homework because you have your mother's handwriting. William Thomas wrote me, 'You saved more than my money. You saved my faith in people doing the right thing.'" 6 months later, I stood in my apartment's small balcony garden with Emma. We'd planted herbs and flowers in containers. Nothing grand, but ours. "It's like your genealogy stuff," she said, watering the basil. "Finding what's real underneath." Sarah from the Historical Society stopped by. We'd been having coffee occasionally, then dinner, then Sunday afternoons teaching Emma about document preservation. "How's the garden?" she asked. "Small but honest. Built to last." Marcus called with final numbers. Every family made whole with interest. Barbara was reportedly working as a receptionist in Phoenix. Her society connections severed. Jennifer had become a real estate agent in California, using her maiden name. "Do you forgive them?" Marcus asked. "I don't think about them enough to need to," I said, and meant it. That evening, I received an unexpected call. Detective Raymond from the Charleston Police Department. "Mr. Miller, we've had similar cases reported in Phoenix. Would you be willing to consult?" Barbara hadn't learned. But then I'd learned that too. Fraudsters always get comfortable. "Send me the files," I said. That night, Emma and I worked on a new family tree. Not bloodlines, but chosen family. James, Marcus, Rebecca, Sarah, Mrs. Patterson, even William Thomas, who'd become a regular at Sunday dinners. "This tree is smaller," Emma observed, "but stronger. These people showed up when it mattered." She added another branch, carefully writing Detective Raymond in her neat script. "He's helping other families now, right?" "Because of us?" "Because of you," I corrected. "You noticed what everyone else missed." 1 year later, I testified as an expert witness in another elder fraud case, this time in Phoenix. Barbara was in the defendant's chair, looking older, smaller, her Charleston Polish worn away. "Your case changed how we handle these crimes," the prosecutor said. "The Roberts method is what we call it now, using family members and identity theft in combination." The Phoenix jury convicted on all counts. As they led Barbara away, she looked at me once. I saw what I'd missed all those years. The fear behind the facade. The desperate need that drove the greed. Emma met me at the airport. Taller now, growing into her own sharp intelligence. Sarah was with her, wearing the engagement ring I'd given her. A simple band. Nothing like the stolen diamonds Barbara had worn. "Did you win, Dad?" "Justice won," I said. "That's better." That evening, while Emma did homework and Sarah graded papers from her new job teaching history, I returned to my genealogy work with new understanding. My phone buzzed. Another case from the state attorney's office. Another family destroyed by someone they trusted. I added another entry to our family record. Year 2024. The year we learned that the strongest families aren't always the ones you're born into, but the ones you build from truth, justice, and the courage to uproot what's poisonous to plant something real. Outside our window, the container garden bloomed, small but thriving, like the best stories, like the families we choose, like the truth that sets us free. Even when it first breaks our hearts, the tree stands, different, scarred, but standing. And that's everything.